Welcome back to The Manager, presented by Outlier Sports. I'm your host, Gianni Frangella, and today I'm in Naples, Florida, visiting my dad. So I set up shop in his study. And it's normally when I'm on vacation, I obviously don't do the podcast or don't do anything like that. But today we're doing the 2026 NBA season preview. Man, I am so excited for NBA basketball to be underway. We're about to enter the best time of year, the sports equinox. We got the World Series coming up. Go Dodgers. How about Shohei Ohtani, man? Oh my God. We got the World Series coming up. NBA season is about to start. NHL is already underway. NFL's been going for a while. We have all four major sports going on at once, plus college football. God, God bless sports, man. God bless them. But let's get into it, man, because we got a lot to talk about. I did a lot of videos in the summer talking about the off season, what went down in the off season, and I'll gloss over some of that stuff today. But we're not going to get into really an off season breakdown because I've already spent so much time talking about that. But action starts as soon as Tuesday, so let's get into it. Let's get into what we got going on here today. First off, we're going to start off hot. Finals matchup prediction. As some of you probably already know, because it's mostly my friends and family who watch this, I'm from Denver. I'm a Nuggets fan. So it should be of no surprise that my finals matchup prediction is going to be the Nuggets versus the Cavaliers. And I'll go into some detail about this because if you asked me last year what my finals prediction was, I was not going to say the Nuggets. I knew from the jump we didn't have it in us. And so I'm not a total homer. Like, I'm not going to completely just pick us no matter what. And I'm not saying I think for sure that OKC's not going to be there. I would not be surprised if they do. But my heart, which is a little biased, my heart tells me we got it this year. So I got us playing the Cavs. I think we'll win because we got the experience. But, I just think that with all of the additions that we made, you add Cam Johnson, you add Bruce Brown, you add probably honestly maybe the most important of all their acquisitions was Jonas Valanciunas. Finally having a suitable, playable backup center behind Jokic is something that they genuinely haven't had since Mason Plumlee in 2020. And he was not like amazing either. He was just playable. He was good. Um, but since then, you've had DeAndre Jordan. We had DeMarcus Cousins for half a season, which was actually really good. But, it was during 2022 when Jamal Murray and MPJ were both out for the season. The season was already a wash. It didn't matter. So you did not have a suitable backup center. You have one now. One that I think is not only suitable just because you can play him, but I think he's suitable to the way Jokic plays. And you can kind of plug him in there and still have a remnants of the same play style that you have with Jokic. Not only that, but David Adelman's already had double big lineups with Jokic and Valanciunas together in the preseason. It actually hasn't looked half bad. I don't think I would go crazy with that, but I think Valanciunas is going to be a huge addition for us. Cam Johnson, I think, is just a better fit than MPJ. I don't even necessarily know if I think he's a better player. I just think he's a better fit. MPJ had 34 and 10 last night for the Nets in a preseason game. And I think he's going to do phenomenal in Brooklyn. I hope he does. But he was never really meant to be like a third option, a sit in the corner, hit some shots, play good defense kind of guy. Look at who he was in high school. He's the number one prospect, had some injuries, but he was still the main guy. College, he was the main guy. That was kind of what he was always built to be, was the main guy who gets all the shots up. And he's going to have that in Brooklyn. And I look forward to seeing how he plays. But Cam Johnson is a better fit. It's not about whether or not he's a better player. I think he's a much better fit than MPJ was. And you got Tim Hardaway Jr. as well. You added some real pieces, some real depth, a bench that you did not have anything close to last year. You had 6 guys on your team last year that were even a remote positive. And that was your starting 5, and then Westbrook off the bench. Watson was not ready. Strother was not ready. Saric was absolutely unplayable. You did not have a bench. And then in the playoffs, that six really boiled down to five, and then at the very end four because MPJ was useless like in the playoffs, and I mean that just because he was hurt. And I give him props that he played through his injury, but you have to look at his performance for what it was. He averaged like 7 points per game in the Oklahoma City series. He was not bringing anything to the table for them really. Aaron Gordon was playing on a grade two hamstring strain. Jamal Murray got sick. Westbrook lost his touch. Like Jokic was exhausted. It was all falling off the rails. If they didn't lose then, they would have lost. I know. I feel in my heart that they would not have gotten past Minnesota, or even if they did by some miracle, they wouldn't have beaten Indiana. They're running on fumes. It was bound to come to an end. That team was never built to win a title last year. This year, though, I think they are. And I think with Adelman, there's a certain level of freshness in the building. I can't speak to exactly what he's going to bring as a coach. I mean, I would say in the 4 weeks that he was a coach between when Malone got fired and when we got eliminated, I saw more, experimentation uh, in those 4 weeks than I saw from Malone and maybe his whole tenure. Malone was a stubborn guy. I think he was a great coach. I'm very grateful for all the things that he did as a Nuggets coach, but he was a stubborn guy. And he would stick with certain lineups in the game for way too long, failed to make adjustments. And it seems like Adelman's really just kind of you know, he really likes to try everything out. He's very experimental. And mad scientist is like the term I'm looking for because he's trying anything. He's throwing anything out there. I mean, throwing Valanciunas and Jokic out there at the same time alone is pretty crazy. But there's a beyond what he might bring as his own head coach. There's a renewed sense of life because the way the Nuggets played just individually, the effort and everything that they gave once Malone got fired was completely different. And I think that was kind of a mixture of, well, shit, they just fired the guy who's been the coach here for 10 years. I'm probably next if I don't get my act together. There's probably a sense of that, but also just it seemed like things weren't really going that well with Malone in the locker room. Per his own words, like a few days before he got fired, he said that the players weren't listening to him. They don't want to listen. They don't want to watch film. Like it had gotten really messy in the Nuggets locker room and in the Nuggets building. It seems like from the outside looking in, at least, I'm not there. I don't know these people personally, but from the outside looking in and from all the stuff that I see, because I'm a sicko of a fan, I look at everything. There's definitely a renewed sense of life, a renewed energy. And so I think we take the West this year. Now for the Cavs, I think this is a combination of things. I've said before, I'm a big believer that in the NBA, you have to take your blows first before you can really reach the mountaintop. The Cavs lost in the second round the last 2 years, dealt with some injuries the last 2 years, but they're still a really good team. They still got a great roster, a great coach. And I think the addition of Lonzo Ball is going to be huge for them because I was watching him and I know it's a preseason game, but still, if some of you saw the assist heater that he was on the other night, he looks like he is really comfortable and like he is back like himself in a way that he has not been since this whole injury thing with his knee. He looks really good. And I think that level of playmaking and energy and just what he brings, I think he's a winning player. Like when he got really good, when he was on the Bulls before he got hurt, and even sometime when he was on the Pelicans, he is a winning player. He contributes to winning. He can shoot, he can pass really well, he's got energy on defense. He's a winning player. Adding that to a team that just won 64 games, I think that's going to be really impressive. And I know they're probably not going to have Garland maybe for some time because he had that surgery, but I think they're going to make the finals because the East is incredibly weak. Um, and, Boston's not going to be there because of Tatum. Indiana's not going to be there. I'll talk about the Bucks a little later, but I'm really confident they're not going to be there. And I throw them in with those two because they lost Dame. And granted, they made something out of it, but I just don't. I don't see it. I don't see it. I mean, even if Dame was healthy, I still would have been extremely skeptical. But anyways, that's my finals prediction. Nuggets made a lot of good changes. I think they got it this year, especially with how close they came with OKC. And I'll talk about OKC in a second. They're not going anywhere. It's not me saying, "Oh, we got it now. We'll take it from here." No, OKC is still going to be super dominant. And if I had to pick any team to not win besides the Nuggets, it would 1,000% be the Thunder. So I got the Nuggets because of the changes they made. I got the Cavs coming out of the East because the addition of Lonzo, very weak East. And I think, like I said, they took their lumps. In the way the NBA goes, you got to take your lumps before you can actually reach the mountaintop and to get to the finals. I think they took their lumps, and I think they get there. But I think the Nuggets will win. Dark horses. This is somewhat of a loose definition. These are teams that I think could make the finals or potentially even win. But I would probably first I would pick a few teams ahead of them. But I could still see it. Clippers, stacked roster. I mean, the bench is really impressive. They added John Collins. They added Bradley Beal. Then they added Chris Paul. They got Brook Lopez in there. It's a really well-rounded and impressive bench, and their whole team is put together. They got to stay healthy, which is a tough thing. And I've seen a lot of people be like, "Well, Kawhi, they stayed healthy last year. They're all healthy at the playoffs last year." Okay, but that was last year. Are you certain that they can do it again? You've seen them do it one time in this whole, Clippers era, aside from the bubble where they choked. You've seen them stay healthy and put it together one time, and they lost. Do you know if they can stay healthy and put it together again? That's a lot to ask out of, a mid-30s James Harden, a mid-30s Kawhi Leonard, a 40-year-old Chris Paul. It's They need to stay healthy. They need to be healthy by the playoffs, is what I should say. And then you have the whole aspiration situation with Steve Ballmer and Kawhi Leonard, and it seems like it's starting to lean towards the fact that maybe like they're not going to be punished because it came out that the NBA knew about this deal and that they had already looked into it, which is I'm a little curious why there's even an investigation if the league had prior knowledge. Maybe this is simply just to save face, but I think Pablo Torre raised a lot of good points. And it says in the CBA, in the letter of the law, I've seen a lot of people being like, "Oh, they can't prove that concrete. They don't have hard concrete evidence." This is not a legal proceeding. This is not like in the eyes of the law. This is in the eyes of the NBA, which is its own private company. It's its own thing. They can rule over that however you want. They don't have to abide by what the actual legal laws are and how they get proof and what has to be concrete. They have to abide by their own ruling, what they deem is against their league laws. They It literally says in the letter of the CBA that circumstantial evidence is enough to warrant a consequence. I think there's mountains of circumstantial evidence here when you consider the timeline of payments that was made to Kawhi, the investments that was made by Steve Ballmer and the Clippers co-CEO or co-owner. It is it is not hard, it's not concrete like people have said, but it is so much mountains of circumstantial evidence. And in the letter of the CBA, it says that is enough to warrant consequence. I don't see why they shouldn't have something here. But then it comes down to, well, okay, well, what's a fair consequence? Because if you're going to allow them to circumvent the cap, if you don't come down hard on this, it is going to encourage all these other owners to do something like this. That's why I really think there needs to be a consequence here. You need to set a precedent. And there's already been reports of owners kind of saying to reporters or something that like if Silver doesn't come down hard on Ballmer, everyone is going to be encouraged to do that. I'm going to be encouraged to do that. Like words out of the mouths of anonymous owners or executives. And so you have to set a precedent here. And I really feel like the only consequence that would even make sense or even mean anything to Steve Ballmer is to make him fork over his ownership. And that seems extreme, but again, you have to set the precedent. There's not been a precedent for something like this before. So you can't look back and say, well, this is what we did then, so this is fair. You are setting that now. And if you find him, say even just $100 million, you could find Steve Ballmer $1 billion, and he'll be totally fine with it. He's the richest owner in sports. You are setting the precedent right now of what the consequences, what hammer comes down on you when you cheat around the NBA salary cap. And if you don't do it right, you could really set a bad precedent for the NBA. That's my rant about the whole aspiration thing. But the reason I bring it up is because I think until that gets resolved, that is a dark cloud over the Clippers' head. I think it's easy to say, oh, we're just going out there and playing basketball. They're just going out there and playing basketball. But that situation's there. I mean, Kawhi could get suspended for this. Kawhi could face time for this. And so I find it hard to believe that he's not going to think about that their coaches aren't going to think about, well, we might not have Kawhi for 5, 10, 15, 20 games, whatever it may be. And that our ownership might go through new ownership. It's a lot to think about. It's a lot that can change the atmosphere in the building even. So I think it's a dark cloud over the team, and until it gets resolved, I think it hinders their chances of success just from a morale standpoint. My other dark horse, Philadelphia 76ers. This is another team that needs to stay healthy, and I think this one's maybe a bit of a reach. But if they can stay healthy, if they can be healthy in the playoffs, they have Joel Embiid, Paul George, Tyrese Maxey, Jared McCain, VJ Edgecombe, who I am super high on. Like, I think I didn't pick him for Rookie of the Year, but I would not be surprised if he won it. I think he is going to be a stud. And it really irks me that the 76ers got him because they're not, to me, same with the Mavs. Like, the lottery this year was a joke. Like, these teams are not real lottery teams, not real, oh, we need top 3 picks teams. But I digress. Embiid, PG, Maxey, Edgecombe, and McCain, and plus, some other guys you got there, like, that is a really, really good team with a lot of potential, in my opinion. And so I think that they're a dark horse. If they stay healthy in the playoffs, shit, yeah, I think they can beat a lot of teams in the East. Now, if they can stay healthy is a huge if, considering they won 30 games last year because Embiid, Paul George, and Maxey and McCain all missed significant amount of time. But if they can, I think they're going to be really good. And I think they got a chance to take the East. Not believing the hype. Golden State Warriors. And it's not to say that they had this tremendous hype train, but I just don't see them as a real contender, in my opinion. Because they had a phenomenal end of the season with Jimmy once they traded for Jimmy. I'm not saying that was flukish, but I'm curious if that success is going to be sustainable across the whole season. Because sometimes when you trade for a guy halfway through a year, it just like a big thing like that, it invigorates the team. It's an injection of new energy. Doesn't mean that it was like the actual solution, though. It's like somewhat of a placebo. Like, yeah, Jimmy being on the team was great, helped them out a lot. But I feel like more or less like the idea that, oh, well, he came in halfway through the year, we can turn this whole thing around. Now it's like, okay, well, we got to make this go through the whole season. And that's just a little bit of a different energy shift. The message and the idea of what was invigorated you grow stale because it's not as new anymore. But another thing to keep in mind here, Steph is 37. Jimmy Butler is 36. Draymond is 35. You need all of these guys to stay healthy. And I mean, not just for the playoffs, but like pretty much all year, because one of these guys goes down. We've seen what the success is like. Without Steph, they were nothing in the playoffs. Before Jimmy came, they couldn't do anything. They were like on their way out of the playoffs. And Draymond, is a glue guy. He does almost everything that holds them together. You miss one of these guys, and it becomes significantly harder for this team to win. They need all 3 of these 35 and older stars to be healthy and to be playing for them to have success. And on top of all of those things, they had a really, really weak offseason. Like, fought with Kuminga the whole offseason just to give him $24 million per year, and added Al Horford super late, who is, I think still a good player. I wanted him on the Nuggets if the whole thing with Valanciunas didn't work out. But he is 39. You have just another super old player on this team. I don't think that they made enough moves. And I think that there's too much riding on the health of really old players. I'm not buying the hype of the Warriors this year. Teams I am buying stock in now, the Atlanta Hawks. I talked about this in my offseason videos. They had a phenomenal offseason. They added Porzingis. They added Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Luke Kennard. They drafted Austin Newell. And I mentioned, as I've raved about this, the way they did it was phenomenal because they wanted him at 13. Traded with the Pelicans, got the Pelicans' first-round pick next year, unprotected, and traded back to 23 and then got the same guy that they wanted at 13. So you got the same player you wanted. And in addition, not only do you have to pay him less because you got him 10 picks later, but in addition, you got a likely lottery pick for next year. I think the Pelicans are going to be better than some people are saying. Like, I've seen some people say, oh, they had the worst offseason. They are going to be the worst team in the league. Joe Dumars is ruining this team. What was to be ruined? It was a mess there. It was an absolute mess. I think they're going to be better. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. And that being said, the Hawks are probably holding on to a lottery pick next year. Another team I'm buying stock in right now is the Spurs. I think they make the playoffs this year. I think this is the year. Wemby does have to stay healthy, but oh my God, he looks terrifying. He looks like he's really honing in his strength. He's gotten bigger, but you can just see him using it in the paint. And so you have this guy who can dribble and shoot like KD, but is now starting to just move people around like he's Shaq. It is terrifying. He looks really good. You're probably going to have progression from Castle, hopefully. You're adding Dylan Harper. I think this is a really good team. Like, it's a rounded out roster now. And if Wemby can stay healthy for the year, I think they'll totally make the playoffs. I wasn't crazy on their decision to stick with the coach that they had in Popovich's absence. But, I think it's fine. It's not like he's a bad coach. I just figured with Mike Brown out there, with Mike Malone out there, with some of the Thibodeau, some of the options they had, I figured they would have at least tried to go with some of those or made an effort. And it seemed like from the jump they just committed to that guy. But I say that guy, and I can't think of his name off the top of my head. It's a little embarrassing, but nonetheless, I'm buying stock in the Spurs this year. What's the ceiling? We're going to run off some teams here, and I'm going to give you what I think their ceiling is. The Lakers. I'm going to say Western Conference Finals. Luka looks really thin. I mean, like, I think everyone has, like, there's always these players who have, like, these thin off-season photos, and then they get on the court, and they get to media day, and you're like, oh, it don't really look that much. It don't really look that different, But I watched Luka last night, and he does look thin. He looks thinner. Now, we have to see if that is going to make a huge difference, because he can be thin and still be slow, still be bad on defense, still get burnt. So he's got to be better in that regard. He has to show improvement in that regard. And I think he is going to have a great year being fully integrated with the Lakers now. But the other factor here is LeBron. This man is 40, is he 41 now? 40, 41. He's old, okay? Oldest guy in the league. And I don't say this like to compare him in the way I did to like Chris Paul or Al Horford. But we've already seen he's going to be out till midway through November. It's already seeming like this might be, I don't want to say injury riddled. This might be a season with a lot of rest for LeBron. And I think for them to really seize their potential, he's got to be playing. He's got to be fully himself. And I think we're already starting to see the decline in his play. It's not that he's bad or he's still an all-star. He's still a great player, but he is not what he once was. And that's understandable. You're 41. But genuinely, like in the playoffs, even with Anthony Davis the year before, like we saw like almost more than half the games where Anthony Davis was like the better player or the best player in the team. Maybe less consistent, but he had a lot of games where he was definitely better than LeBron. And it doesn't, and Luka's better than LeBron. So I'm not saying like, oh, he has to be the best guy, but you're just seeing that he is not the same, one of the same guy that we look at and think, oh, this is the greatest player of all time or second greatest player of all time. And I think he's going to have a lot of rest this season. But more than LeBron, more than Luka, I'm not a big fan of DeAndre Ayton. And I don't mean like, oh, I just don't like the guy. I'm not a big fan of his game. I think there might have been better center options out there that they just didn't get. And he has like attitude issues. He like doesn't try sometimes or he pouts. And frankly, he's I think he's just simply not that great of a defender. I mean, Jokic like Jokic does this to everybody, but specifically his numbers against DeAndre Ayton in the playoffs are actually like astounding when you look him up. Like the title run, I think he averaged like 35, 14, and 10 against the Suns. Scorched them more than he did any other team. And obviously not every player is Jokic, but I've seen that he's not like this. He's not a great defender. It's not maybe not even that he's bad, but he's not going to hold up resistance against these big guys that you need to guard, that you need to have a good defender against. And I just think the loss of Finney Smith, I don't think they have enough size. I don't think they have enough defense. I think they're a great, they still have a good squad. And the Lucas, I almost called them the Lucers. The Lakers, their ceiling is as high as Luka takes them. And to me, I think that's the Western Conference Finals. So I could see them upsetting someone, but I can't see them getting past all three of or two of the Nuggets, the Rockets, or the Thunder. I can see them beating one of those teams. I can't see them beating both or three or whatever they got to do. I think at least one of those three is going to stop them. So I got the Western Conference Finals for the Lakers. Timberwolves, Western Conference Finals as well. They lost Nickeil Alexander-Walker. They didn't necessarily improve the roster. They just moved up some guys who were in the weights. One of them being Terrence Shannon Jr., who I do think is going to be pretty good. Looks like he's ready to take a leap. He looked phenomenal in Summer League. However, they didn't add new pieces. And I think you're just kind of holding out and hoping for a ton of progression from Ant and Jaden McDaniels. And maybe that happens. But from where we stand now, that's a little bit of wishful thinking. It's not to say it won't happen or that it can happen, but just not improving your roster and saying, well, they'll just get better. I don't think that's really how you should go about it if your number one goal is to win a championship. They did have to re-sign Jaden McDaniels. They had to re-sign I'm sorry, not Jaden McDaniels. They had to re-sign Naz Reid. They had to bring these guys back. And so I get it. It's you were with this hard cap and the CBA and these aprons. It is very restrictive. So they probably did all that they could, but at the end of the day, it doesn't mean that all you could do was enough to get over these other teams. So I got them at the Western Conference Finals. Houston Rockets, their ceiling is an NBA championship. They added Kevin Durant. They added Dorian Finney-Smith. They added Clint Capella. Brought back Steven Adams. Brought back Jeff Green. Brought back a lot of these guys. They are in the S tier of threats, in my opinion, for winning a championship. However, Fred VanVleet tore his ACL. He's out for the year. And this really sucks for them because they don't really have a point guard now, except for Reed Shepherd, who is so unproven. And if you want to go, the issue is like you only have Reed Shepherd, and because of the cap and where they are in the cap, they can't really pick up another point guard, and there's not like an option out there that's like suitable. You'd have thought maybe Westbrook, but now he just signed. But the thing is, they can't really pick one up because of where they are in the cap and the restrictions it'll have. And you think, well, just trade for one. All of these guys, all of the guys that you would want them to trade, just sign back. So they can't be traded until I think midway through December. So right now, the only players they can trade are Kevin Durant, Amen Thompson, Şengün, Tari Eason, Jabari Smith, or Reed Shepard. The only one on that list that you should really be able to part, like really be willing to part with, in my opinion, is Reed Shepard. Some people would say Jabari Smith. I think he's a good player. I think they should hold on to him. I think that would be jumping the gun. I think their best option is to wait till midway through December until they can trade some of these other players. But you are not going to trade any of those guys that I just listed for a point guard right now. It's panicking. And I don't think they need to panic. They just need to float the boat until then, until they can add one. But that's the reason I bring this up is because that is a thing, that is something they have to take care of before the playoffs. You need a true point guard. And I don't think relying on Reed Shepard to be that is going to work out for you. In this league, it is shown you need a true point guard. You need someone who is comfortable playing the point. You need a real playmaker. So that's my only critique on them. But their roster looks really good. They're still pretty young. They showed a lot of inexperience in the playoffs last year. But I mentioned earlier, I think you got to take your lumps. They probably have one more lump in them, but I wouldn't be surprised if they've already taken them, and then this is the year they get it done. Considering they added KD, that in itself is huge. And then Dorian Finney-Smith, I think, is like a huge role player addition. They got defense out the wazoo with Amen Thompson, with Dorian Finney-Smith. They have shooting out the wazoo. They have it all except for a point guard. They get that, and man, they are scary. New York Knicks, I think they make the finals. I think they can make the finals. And the reason I say this is because I would not pick them to beat Denver, OKC, Houston. I just wouldn't. If it was someone else other than those three teams, then maybe. But I don't think they'd beat them. But the East is a joke this year. I think besides Cleveland, they're like the biggest threat. They got a new coach. They got Mike Brown in there. I think Mike Brown's a great coach. I'm very eager to see how they do with that. But I would pick Cleveland over them right now, but they can make the finals. So I think I would pick them over Orlando. I would pick them over Atlanta, even though I'm buying stock in. I'd pick them over Philadelphia probably, as from where we stand today. I think I would pick them over anybody except Cleveland, and they could still beat them for sure. So I think they can make the NBA Finals. I don't think they can win it this year. Orlando Magic. I think their ceiling is the Eastern Conference Finals. Still super young. Super young. And what I've seen a lot of people say about them is like, oh, they got Desmond Bane now. Desmond Bane's going to be huge. And I spoke some critiques about this earlier in the offseason. They're like, he's going to be huge because they have no shooting. Now we have this great shooter, and it like fixes the problem. He's only one guy. He's not Superman. Him being a good shooter is great. And I do think it's going to help them a lot. And it is a weak conference. But when you get into the playoffs, having only one guy that is a good shooter does not work. Because then everyone else, the way they play is they're going to make everyone else shoot. You need all of these other guys to make enough of a leap shooting wise to be decent shooters, to be formidable enough. Because once it gets to the playoffs, they're going to swarm Desmond Bane. And if he's got to give the ball up to Paulo, to Franz, to Jalen Suggs, and these guys cannot knock down threes, it'll be the death of them. You need more than one guy. It's going to be huge. It's going to be a lot of help for them, considering they were like dead last in 3-point attempts and percentage last year. However, they need more than one guy, more than one good shooter. Um, it'll be helpful, but he's not Superman. Um, and they have like a phenomenal roster of defensive guys, but they still need more shooters. Oklahoma City Thunder, NBA champions. Do I even really need to elaborate? They won 68 games last year. They won the NBA Finals. They didn't lose anybody. Um, and I've seen some people say, well, they didn't add anybody. They didn't really have to. What more can you add or improve on when you win 68 games, when you win the NBA Finals, and you kind of impose your will on the rest of the league? I'm still picking the Nuggets, obviously, because so I think we'll win. And come on, I'm a Nuggets fan. But anybody who thinks that the Thunder don't have a chance this year, or like don't have it this year, or really, even though I'm picking the Nuggets, shouldn't be favorites, I would argue that with you, because they've lost nothing. They're still young, and if anything, they might even be better for the simple fact of progression. Um, so yeah, that's really all I need to say about the Thunder. Milwaukee Bucks. I wrestled with what I thought about this one. I'm going with the second round. I'm not crazy about the pairing of Giannis and Miles Turner. To me, that reeked of desperation. They're like, well, we don't have Dame. Brooke Lopez is going to walk. Let's just get somebody. Let's get somebody and see if it'll work with Giannis. That's what it feels like to me. I don't see how adding Miles Turner to this pairing with Giannis fixes everything. You still lost Dame. You still don't have a point guard on your team. Their depth chart right now has Kevin Porter Jr. listed as their starting point guard. I'm not confident in that. They have Cole Anthony. Maybe he's a starter. I don't think he's like a phenomenal point guard either. He's not a true playmaker. Um, and I think a lot of people look at it as like, oh, well, Miles Turner is going to make up for what they lost with Dame. Think of that sentence you just said. Miles Turner, Damian Lillard. There's a gap there. But even then, no, it's not what's happening. He's filling in for Brooke Lopez, which, yeah, he's probably an upgrade over Brooke Lopez, but you got nothing to fill the gap of Damian Lillard except Cole Anthony. That's not good enough. And I mean, I still don't believe in Doc Rivers as the coach. I just, and I think this is a very worthy concern at this point in time. Is Giannis going to be healthy for the playoffs? He's been basically injured or stifled for the last three playoffs. And they haven't gotten out of the first round since then. So, or in that time. And I think the second rounds are ceiling because I just don't like the makeup of the roster and the way it works together. I don't like their head coach. I love Giannis, but I don't see it going past the second round. Award predictions. Now, I wrestled with this one mightily. But for my MVP, I'm going to go with SGA. And the reason I say this is because I really kind of feel like with the season that Jokic had last year, I don't know if he'll ever get it again. For him to have the season he had last year and not win it. Because there is this little, like, whether people say it or not, excuse me, whether people say it or not, there is this, like, unspoken standard that you're held to of, like, well, are you even playing as good as you were last year? I don't see a world where Jokic repeats what he does last year. And that's not to say I think he's getting older, he's regressing. But there's simply going to be less asked of him this year. So I don't think he's going to have to put up a 30-point triple double for us to win 50 games. Granted, there was an 18-win difference between uh, the Nuggets and the Thunder, and I get why SGA won it. But Jokic was so much more individually impressive. Like, to me, that's undeniable. But the reason SGA won is because their team was so much better. Their team had so much more success. And I totally understand why he won it. I don't think it's crazy. I'm not like outraged by it like some other Nuggets fans are. I get it. You can't give it to a guy who's got 18 less wins. That's too much of a margin. But I do think the Thunder are going to finish first this year. I'm picking SGA, and it's not because I don't think Jokic is going to have a great year or deserve it, but I just think that if he couldn't win it last year, even though there was these reasons that explain it, if he couldn't win it last year, I don't think he's going to play as great as he did that as the last year. I don't think the narrative is going to be there for him to win it this year. That's just my opinion. I would love if he did, but I'm picking SGA, and a little bit because of superstition as well. Rookie of the year, Cooper Flag. I wrestle with this one because, like I said earlier, I really like VJ Edgecombe, but he is on a. I just don't think. I think he may not really get the ball enough, on a team like that. He may not be able to do enough when he's like the fourth, fifth option on the team. Um, Flag has got a lot of other really good players, but they are, he is, especially with Kyrie out, he's probably going to be the second scoring option behind Anthony Davis. Um, so give me Cooper Flag for Rookie of the Year. Defensive Player of the Year, Wembanyama. Like, such an easy pick. And this really only boils down to if he stays healthy, because he had it locked up last year, and then he got the blood clots, and it was like, well, shit, who gets it now? Because it was totally going to be him. So now it's up for grabs. If he stays healthy, it's his, no doubt about it. Sixth Man of the Year. I wrestled with this one as well, just because I was kind of hard pressed to find an option that I really liked for it, but I went with Nas Reed. Um, and I think he got his new contract, and there is some guys play worse when they get their money. Some guys play better. I think they didn't add anybody. They're relying on internal development. I think he's going to have a good year, and I think he will win Sixth Man of the Year. Most improved player. I couldn't pick one. I split between Benedict Mathurin, because with Halliburton out, they're going to rely on him a lot more. I think you saw in some of those playoff games what he can bring and like his potential. He makes some bonehead mistakes, but you see the potential. You see what he can offer. And with an increased role because of Halliburton's absence, I think he's got a great chance to win MIP. And then my other pick was Denny Avdia. Phenomenal end of the season last year. Now, some of this is just putting up really gaudy stat lines against, bad teams or games that hardly mattered towards the end of the season. But I mean, just watching him, he even had a phenomenal game against the Nuggets at the end. I think he's going to have a great year. He's going to take a leap. I don't think maybe an All Star, maybe not. I think I got a lot of faith in him winning MIP. Coach of the Year. I also went with a split decision on this one, and I went with Mike Brown or David Adelman. And here's my reasoning behind this. When you are a first year head coach, like in your tenure with your team, you are I don't know the math and numbers, but I can say this confidently that statistically you are significantly more likely, you have a better chance of winning it than if you've been with a team for some time. Because people are able to look at what you did in the year that you got there, what changed, what went different, and say, oh man, this guy's a coach of the year. He changed everything. He showed up and started winning everything. That's how Kenny Atkinson won. It's how a lot of coaches won. It's kind of like the most improved coaching award, honestly. And Mike Brown's got to have his first year with this team. If they can win, I think they won 52, 51 games last year. If they can win close to 60, he'll get it. If David Adelman, they won 50 games last year. If they can win close to 60, I think he'll get it. If one of those guys does that, I think they get the award simply off of the narrative and the way that the voting history has gone. So those are my award predictions. Before I close this out, we're going to go over the first 3 days of the season, the opening slate when everybody plays their first game. Opening night, Rockets at Thunder, 7:30 Eastern time. Thunder get their rings, drop the banner, or raise the banner, drop the curtain on the banner, because when they show it. Yeah, sorry, whatever. Warriors at the Lakers, 10 p.m. Eastern time. No LeBron, but that will be a good game nonetheless. That's on Tuesday opening night. Wednesday, we got a big slate. Cavs at the Knicks, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Heat at the Magic, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Nets playing the Hornets, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Tell me how that one goes. 76ers at the Celtics, 7:30 Eastern time. Raptors at the Hawks, 7:30 Eastern time. Pelicans at the Grizzlies, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Pistons at the Bulls, 8 p.m. Wizards at the Bucks, 8 p.m. Clippers at the Jazz, 9 p.m. Spurs at the Mavericks, 9:30. Kings at the Suns, 10 p.m. Eastern time. And the Wolves at the Blazers, 10 p.m. Eastern time. That is all for Wednesday. Thunder at the Pacers, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. And then finally, the Nuggets at the Warriors, 10 p.m. Eastern time. We quite literally play last, dead last. The Pacers are the only other team that doesn't have their first game on either Tuesday or Wednesday. So Pacers and the Nuggets are the only teams that don't play till Thursday, and then we play after them. So we're dead last. A little annoying, but I don't care, man. I'm just so excited for basketball. So hyped for the season to start. And again, we're coming up on the sports equinox. Best time of the year. Gotta love it, man. This has been the Manager NBA edition. I'm going to try and do this once a week, although right now I'm debating on whether or not I should hold off on doing one until 2 weeks from now, the week leading up to Halloween, because I could do one next week and each team will have only played one, max 2 games. So I want to maybe talk about it a little bit more, but we'll see. I still want to keep this a weekly habit. We'll see how it goes. We'll keep you posted. I'll keep you updated. I'll let you know in my NFL pod. If you haven't watched that, that's out on YouTube as well. It's out on Spotify. Go ahead and give that a listen, a watch, whatever you want to do. Just help me out. Do something for me. That's all I ask. But anyways, hope you enjoyed listening, watching, whatever you're doing. This has been The Manager, presented by Outlier Sports. I was host Gianni Frangella here in Naples, Florida. I hope you have a great day.